let's do this. We are the Chad and Cheese Podcast. I'm your co-host, Joel Cheeseman. Joined as always, Chad Sowash is in the house. And this is the Sessions AI Frontline Series as we welcome Matt Charney, CMO at employer.com. Matt, welcome to HR's Most Dangerous Podcast.
Well, thank you very much. It's got a lot more cameras than I remembered.
And they each put on 10 pounds, by the way.
Right, that's great.
Believe it or not, a lot of our listeners and viewers will not know who you are. Give us a quick elevator pitch on Matt and the organization that you work for.
Sure. So, as I said, my name is Matt Charney. That's at Matt Charney on Twitter, or X. And I have been in the space now for about 20 years and mainly focusing on talent acquisition, technologies. So I've run marketing for companies like Monster, Cornerstone, Smart Recruiters, and am now in charge of employer.com, which is a company that owns a bunch of different sub-brands such as Bench Accounting, Bounty Jobs, and now Main Street Tax. So essentially, we're building a Google workspace for small business.
All the exciting acquisitions, taxes,
tax, accounting, all that fun
fortunately,
stuff.
we're not talking about taxes.
Boring makes money. That's all I got to say. But what's not boring is AI. So
we can already agree to disagree.
That's fine. That's fine. It's not boring out in the space. Obviously, everybody's talking about agentic is the big thing, but I think it's important for practitioners to understand that you just don't go out and buy AI and put it in your coffee in the morning, right? There's a lot of work to do around due diligence, et cetera, et cetera. What are some of the biggest points that you've seen that are being overlooked by a lot of companies that are out there, a lot of practitioners who really, some of them can't even spell AI, for goodness sakes. What are they missing? What's the big miss?
So for me, oftentimes, and this is canonically the case when people are purchasing HR technology, but I think it's really amped up with AI, and that is buying a solution in search of a problem. And so I think when you fundamentally look at it, it has to be, what problem am I trying to solve?
Right.
Rather than everyone's using this new advanced technology and I'm going to be left behind if I don't do it. So I would say a focus on process and process optimization and efficiency with a orientation towards outcome. What do I want this to achieve?
Right.
And most importantly, how am I going to demonstrate actual ROI when inevitably in this economy, I'm called in to justify my spend?
So my wife loves when I say this because it sounds so cheesy. You'll love it too. Fall in love with the problem. Actually understand what your problem is.
You, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Understand what the problem is. It seems like that's not the big key. Not to mention also, we're dealing with 20-year-old tech in many cases, right? So it's like there's more than likely a ton of process optimization that needs to happen. So there has to be a process implosion. So using AI or agentic or what have you and trying to layer it into your current process methodology is probably not going to work.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, 100%. And the thing, too, is that a lot of what's being sold as AI, for example, like stack ranking resumes and matching, that's also technology that's been around for 20 years.
Yes.
So I think in the drive to look at AI solutions, I would also say, what in my current stack actually has these automation capabilities in the first place? And you actually might be surprised because nothing here is new. In terms of what's being sold, it's just being marketed and branded slightly differently than it used to be.
Right. And who cares if it's AI, RPA, agent, or whatever, just as long as you're getting the outcome that you're looking for.
Exactly. Automation is automation. That's really what we are talking about. When it comes to particularly agentic, obviously generative is a little bit different, but I don't think that recruitment probably has a lot of really solid use cases for generative AI.
Now that we know you've been around a while, you mentioned Monster even. How does today's disruption compare to what you've seen in your career? Because I had a hard time sort of paralleling what is going on now. The only thing that I could think of was the actual .com revolution. Am I overhyping that? Do you feel similarly? And my second part is, are we ready for it? And if not, how do we get ready for it?
So I think that we haven't seen a lot of change in this industry. It's been very status quo. And if anything, things have consolidated into a few major vendors and their like ecosystems that plug in. And so I think that what we are looking at is, particularly when you look at the use cases and things that these AI solutions and technologies are being used to really, deliver, what we're looking at is, to your point, legacy tech, with an outdated code base, terrible and often negative net promoter scores, which has always been the case, and really seeing more of a reaction to the frustration of their inabilities rather than an embrace of possibility when it comes to these AI products, I think. So, long story short, I think, yes, it is the biggest change
Mhm.
that I've seen, but that's only because it's disrupting the status quo to a certain extent.
And I'm hearing you say we're not ready if it's the biggest, because most of the changes that haven't been as big, we're not quite ready yet. And can we get ready? Because a lot of people are talking about the death of the profession. I mean, people like Kevin Wheeler, Tim Sackett, people that we know are saying that the whole game is changing. Agree or disagree? Because one of the things I've loved about you is we talk a lot of innovation on our show, a lot of pie in the sky, new stuff, QR codes and the like, right?
I was wrong on
And
that.
you've always been great about bringing things down and like, hey guys, it's still about job board, it's still about applicants. So I'm curious your position on, is it the end, or are we hyping this thing just in a ridiculous manner?
So here's my caution on this is HR was in a very unique position, and I just want to point out I'm not politicizing anything.
Yeah, yeah.
A couple of years ago, to really put themselves into a strategic operator seat with the DEI imperative and the rise of that, and really a focus in budget. Unfortunately, the backlash to that we're starting seeing means that a lot of that capital has sort of been eroded. So I think that in terms of being able to drive organizational change, that seat at the table that Sherm loves to talk about maybe have moved back a couple inches. So I would say, as is often the case, HR likes to work in a silo. We talk about HR tech and the HR tech stack as if it exists independently. I promise that HR and recruiting are not the only functions who are having this conversation about AI
hmm
and who are making significant capital investments in AI technologies. I think that the opportunity, rather than is the function going away or what's it going to look like, with this new technology, because of its ease of integration, because of the fact that it improves with data and inputs, and the business like imperative of talent acquisition is to align with the business. Here's your chance to go actually work with those other LOBs and align technology stacks and get AI usage um, standardized and operationalized across the organization. And then that puts TA into a much better position to be able to be looking at the same numbers, being able to look at the same impacts, and being able to essentially standardize people information against business information.
So when you're taking a look at the obviously the meteoric rise of ChatGPT and OpenAI, and then obviously Google has to come out with Gemini, and you've got Cloud and so on and so forth. But you've got all these competing models. But that's wonderful for organizations in our space because it seems like business people are using those large language models on a daily basis. So to be able to start getting them into the adoption phase, it just feels like it's happening much faster. Are you seeing the same thing in the market?
Yeah, I think that you are seeing a lot of, and in our space in particular, instances of essentially a vendor offering a white labeled version of one of those commercially available LLMs.
Yeah.
Here's the problem with that. There's so much compliance moving targets there between intellectual property, between how they're handling and processing sensitive data,
hmm
that if I were in the profession right now, I would definitely cease my use of some of these instances until they've been fully vetted by both my CISO and my CIO. I think that is sort of a misstep. So those lessons are being learned elsewhere in the organization. To my earlier point, I would go and seek out those stakeholders and try to figure it out, because I should not be adding to the risk profile of the company if I'm in HR. I should be mitigating it.
It seems like most companies at this point, not just in HR, but in sales and customer service, it's almost afraid like they're afraid that there's a bigger risk in losing to competition because competition's actually utilizing the large language models or the automation systems much better, right? And it almost feels like there's a bigger risk to lose out to competitors, or at least that's the narrative that's being pushed to be able to drive adoption in this. What do you think about that?
I think that that's a great way for sales to create urgency.
Yeah.
However, I think that there are probably more downsides to being first to market than waiting and seeing.
Mhm.
Namely, that if you're on the cutting edge, you often get cut. And, you want to see a couple things. One, what mistakes are your competitors making?
Mhm.
Two, is this something that I can fix independent of technology? Because if I can, then that means I have some structural advantages
Yeah.
that my competition doesn't have. And I think third and most importantly is trying to see who has staying power among these vendors, because what we're doing is we're giving a lot of very well-funded VC-backed startups
Yeah.
keys to the kingdom in terms of our data and information without any sort of knowledge or foresight about, are they going to be acquired by a PE? Where's
Yeah.
that data going to go afterwards? Look at TikTok as a basic example. What happens to all that now? And I think that if you're a business, there's a very real risk if that vendor goes under, that all of your data is compromised or used in a way that you're not going to want.
Well, the current administration, though, is pretty much telling all the other countries, hey, back off our AI countries, our AI companies. So it seems like they're making the statement that don't worry, break stuff. There's not that much risk while we're here. That's what it feels like. So it almost feels like companies feel like they can take that risk that you're advising not to take.
Yeah.
Just because, I mean, again, it feels like the Wild West, and like the administration's like, it is the Wild West, just go break stuff.
I would argue that in terms of AI savvy, North Korea, in fact, is the most advanced nation in the world. We don't need to go into the reasons,
Oh,
but
yeah.
let's just say protectionism when it comes to integrated operating systems
Yeah.
is a fool's errand, as is probably listening to this administration and making decisions long-term based off of their short-term policy objectives.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Matt, thanks for hanging out with us today. Enjoy the rest of your time in Vegas. And for the Chad and Cheese podcast, this has been the AI Sessions, the Frontline series. I'm Joel Cheeseman. That's Chad Sowash. Find out more about us at chadcheese.com. We out.
We out.